The man was awakened from his sleep by the barking of his dog and had just come downstairs when he saw two men in black. He was then knocked to the ground with a bat by the man behind him. The lights came on, and three men in black punched and kicked the man, leaving him covered in blood, until he fell to the ground, powerless to fight back. He could only watch as the men in black killed his dog and was then knocked unconscious by a punch from one of them. When he woke up again, the dog's body was beside him. The man buried the dog, cleaned up the blood on the floor, and thought about all that had happened the previous night, and anger and hatred began to well up in his mind. The man's name was John, and he was a retired professional killer. His wife had just died recently, and the dog was her last gift to him. John had planned to retire and spend the rest of his life peacefully with the dog. When he was out for gas, he met Isef, the son of a gang leader, who became interested in John's car and asked him how much he wanted to sell it for.
She's not for sale.
Isef was very angry at being rejected, so he and his accomplice discussed how to get back at this guy. That night, they snuck into John's house, killed his dog, and snatched his car. Isef took the car to a repair shop and asked the owner to paint and modify it. When the repair shop owner saw the license plate number, his face changed significantly. Then a punch knocked Isef to the ground. It turned out that Aurelio, the repair shop owner, had also worked for Isef's father. And now that Isef had killed John's dog and stolen his car, Aurelio knew John wouldn't stop there. Sure enough, as soon as Isef left the repair shop, John arrived. After hearing from Aurelio what had happened, John drove off. Vigo soon learned of the incident, called Isef over, and beat him up in front of his men. He told Isef that John had been his best assassin and had killed 3 people in a row in a bar with just a pencil. Because his wife was terminally ill, he chose to retire. But before that, John had killed all of Vigo's enemies on his own so that he could achieve his current position as the boss. John was also able to quit thanks to this. Now, Isef, who didn't know what he was doing, had killed John's dog. Vigo rushed to call John, hoping he could forgive his son's recklessness. But John didn't say anything and just hung up the phone. Then, with a hammer to open the ground in order to take out the sealed weapons, a revenge action is about to begin. In the meantime, Vigo immediately sent his men, ready to take care of John first, because he knew that either John or his son would die this time. At midnight, 12 assassins sneaked into John's house. John was also prepared. He took his pistol, turned off the lights, and slowly walked toward the living room. Taking advantage of the night, John, who was hiding in the dark, shot them, one by one, instantly eliminating the first killer who came to encircle him. Another wanted to sneak up on him, but was knocked to the ground by John the next second. He picked up the kitchen knife next to him and slashed at John, but he was finally pinned to the ground by John, and that same knife was plunged into his heart. The police patrol heard the noise and arrived, but when he saw the body on the ground...
You, working again?
No, just sorting some stuff out.
After the police left, John dialed the number of a professional cleaner, who arrived soon at John's home. They were skilled and quick, and the bodies of the 12 killers were quickly wrapped in plastic and packed away. When Vigo learned the news, he issued a $2 million reward for John's death. At the same time, he told his cronies to keep Isef at the Red Circle Club and not to go out, and that he would send all his elites there to wait for John's appearance. Vigo soon found John's former friend, Marcus, a professional assassin, and hoped he would help kill John. Vigo was slightly concerned because John and Marcus used to be best friends, but Marcus readily agreed. On the other hand, John had already packed his bags and arrived at the Continental Hotel, which was protected by international mob forces. The hotel charged a high fee but could guarantee the safety of all tenants and provide intelligence information. No one can kill anyone in that hotel. If they do, they will be hunted down by international gang organizations. John found Winston, the owner of the place, and learned from him where Isef was now. So, after putting on a bulletproof vest, he set off towards the Red Circle Club. Isef, at this time, was still leisurely drinking wine and picking up girls, utterly unaware that his death was approaching. His father had sent all his elites to guard him to ensure his safety. John arrived alone, forced back the guards at the door, and walked in with aplomb. He quickly snapped the neck of one of the killers, punched another man to the ground, strangled him, asked him where Isef was, and then pinned him down in the sink. Like a ghost, John took out the guards on patrol without a sound. When he saw Isef through the glass, a killer spotted him, and John grabbed his gun and knocked him to the ground. The security chief in the surveillance room saw this and immediately called all the killers to come to his aid, and Isef took advantage of the chaos to escape, with John in hot pursuit. John used his gun to kill a way through the dance floor. But there were many of them, and in a dimly lit aisle, John was accidentally shot in the abdomen by one of the killers. Isef escaped, and John continued to fight with the killer in the aisle. The two punched and kicked each other, and the fight was hard to separate. Eventually, John became physically exhausted and was thrown from the second floor by the killer, landing heavily on the ground. He pulled out his pistol, blended into the fleeing crowd, and re-entered the Continental Hotel. Afterward, John got a full-time doctor in the hotel to treat his abdominal wound. When he thought he would be able to recuperate, a sniper's rifle was aimed at him from the window. The bullet did not hit John but hit the pillow next to him. John immediately jumped out of bed and got down on the ground when a female assassin came in with a gun. This woman, Perkins, was also a professional assassin. After receiving a high reward order from Vigo, she decided to ignore the rules of the Continental Hotel and barged into John's room, ready to assassinate him. Fortunately, Marcus found it in time and shot John to warn him. John tied a bandage around Perkins' neck with his arm and the two wrestled until Perkins broke free from his restraints and struck toward John's abdominal wound. She was, however, soon subdued by John, who pointed a gun at her and asked her where Isef was hiding.
Little Rush Church.
Perkins also told John that Vigo had hidden everything of value in a secret base beneath the church. After hearing this, John knocked Perkins out and gave her to his old friend Harry on the same floor to help watch over him. Then, he set off toward the church that Perkins had talked about. Upon arriving at the church, John opened fire, drawing out several hidden guards in the church, all of whom were killed by him immediately. He then grabbed the wounded priest and went to Vigo's secret base. He forced the priest to open the iron door of the vault and burned all of Vigo's possessions. In the meantime, Vigo was furious to learn that his vault had been burned down and rushed over. Immediately after, John shot and killed one of his men beside him. Vigo dodged in fear, but John raised his machine gun and started firing wildly. One of the killers, under cover of fire from his companions, started the car and rammed it towards John, who was knocked out of the way when he couldn't dodge. The wounded and unconscious John was tied to a chair. Then Vigo ordered someone to use a plastic bag and put it over his head, ready to let him die of painful suffocation. Suddenly, a bullet was fired, killing one of the assassins. John took this opportunity to knock the other killer to the ground, remove the plastic bag from his head, and struggle with him. John strangled the killer to the ground, cut the straps on his hands, and rushed out with his gun. Marcus, who was hiding up high, once again chose to leave in silence. Angry, John stopped Vigo's car, killing the driver and forcing Vigo to give up the location of his son.
I have your word then if I tell you where he is. You let me walk away.
After learning where Isef was hiding, John kept this promise and left with the gun. On the other side, Perkins, who had awakened, quietly broke off the handcuffs and crashed into Harry while he wasn't looking, breaking the rules of the Continental Hotel again. Meanwhile, John had arrived at the safe house where Isef was hiding. He neatly killed the security guards patrolling the perimeter and shot the playmate inside the room. The security guard urgently moved Isef while John calmly detonated the bomb. Soon, Isef was the only one left, and John shot Isef to the ground and then, without waiting for him to finish his final sentence, John shot him in the head and left in style. Soon, Vigo received the news that his son was dead, but there was nothing he could do then. On the other hand, Marcus also found John. It turns out that he had never betrayed John, accepting Vigo's bounty, but only to be able to protect John in secret. But all this was discovered by Perkins, who was hiding, so she told Vigo about it. That night, Marcus was surrounded by a group of killers, tortured by Vigo, and finally brutally murdered. To relieve his hatred, Vigo deliberately told John the news. When he arrived, he found Marcus in a pool of blood. On the other side, Perkins was also surrounded by a group of killers because she violated the rules of the Continental Hotel and was executed on the spot. After killing Perkins, Winston called John and told him that Vigo was getting ready to leave in a helicopter. He kept ramming into Vigo's convoy, and as the vehicles passed a bridge deck, he knocked one of the vehicles off the bridge. Then, he stepped on the gas pedal to the end, a handsome drift, directly forced Vigo's car to the corner, and ruthlessly crashed into a side iron pillar. Several of Vigo's men got out of the vehicle and shot at John, but he took care of each one individually. Just when he was very excited to kill, Vigo drove his car into him hard and saw it was about to fall off the bridge. John, however, climbed out of the sunroof in a hurry. But when he raised his gun to look for Vigo, he found no one inside. At this time, the sky was pouring rain. John and Vigo, two men, came to an open space with bare hands and began the final duel. Vigo suddenly pulled out a dagger and stabbed John, who didn't dodge but instead took the initiative to plunge the knife into himself. The next moment, he broke Vigo's arm, pulled out the dagger in his body, and plunged it into Vigo's neck. Injured John endured severe pain and came to the door of a pet hospital. He broke the glass, entered the room, briefly treated the wound, and then opened the iron door of one of the cages. At the end of the film, John leads a dog and once again sets out on the road home. The action crime movie, John Wick, released in 2014, was also called by the audience, To Return My Dog's Life. The film's hero single-handedly destroyed an entire gangster organization in order to avenge the death of his dog. The whole film is tense, the gun battle scenes are very intense, simple, and brutal, with a revenge plot set up so that the audience would watch exclaiming overjoyed. If you like the film, you can go watch the full version of the movie for a better viewing experience. The John Wick series has come out with 3 installments and the 4th one will be released soon. The intense gun battles and fight scenes in the film will be even more stunning to watch in the cinema. If you'd like, I will review the other 2 episodes of the series. Thank you for watching and we will see you in the next video.